In the summer 2021 anime season, there are a whopping 8 Isekai shows, or shows in the transported to another world genre. That's around 20% of all new shows that are airing during the season. While Isekai shows have grown more and more popular in recent years, this season has an especially high number. The big question is, which will be the best of the season? I decided to watch the first episode of every summer 2021 Isekai and predict which will be the best in several categories, including writing, action, visuals, comedy, and voice acting/sound. I won't be looking at the slime Isekai just because this is the second core of the second season and I haven't seen the first season. First, let me give you a rapid-fire introduction to the shows I'll be considering. Number 1. How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. This anime is about a guy named Kazuya Soma who's summoned as a hero to another world. When he learns he's meant to be traded to a neighboring empire for their war effort, he convinces the king who summoned him to let him help fix the nation's finances instead. Number 2. My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom X. This is the second season of a show where a girl otaku is reincarnated as Katarina Clays, the villainess in her favorite dating game. However, her actions cause her relationships with the other characters to play out far differently, and she gets a harem. Number 3. Spirit Chronicles. Amakawa Haruto dies in modern times. Meanwhile, a young boy named Ryo, who lives in a medieval fantasy world, suddenly inherits his memories and has 2 sets of memories in his head. Number 4. Sonny Boy. A school full of 36 kids and no adults gets put in a realm where everything is dark and empty. At the same time, some of the kids develop superpowers. They must decide how to handle their new situation and what rules they must follow. Number 5. Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy. Makoto Misumi is summoned to another world because his parents are from there and promise to send him back as repayment. Unfortunately, the goddess doesn't like him and only gives him the power of understanding languages, but he still ends up being overpowered because of differences between his world and this one. Number 6. Chi Kusushi no Slow Life Isekai ni Tsukuro Drugstore. Kiryu Reijou runs a drugstore in a fantasy world where he uses his skills to craft potions that help with everything from giving people energy to serving as a deodorant. Number 7. Meikyu Black Company. Kenji Ninomiya is a NEET who got rich through investing and never has to work. He's transported to a fantasy world where he's forced to do manual labor in the mines, but he aims to get his cushy life back. Despite the abundance of isekai this season, most of the shows are actually not your stereotypical one with the generic overpowered protagonist. Some seem like they'll be a lot better than others though. The first category I want to predict is which show will have the best writing. That goes to Sonny Boy, which does an extremely good job of showing things rather than telling. The show slowly builds up to all of its major details in the first episode. The start of the episode focuses on personal conversations between students, with the state of the school as a backdrop. We see glimpses of the blackness through windows for several scenes before the full extent of it is shown, and we hear superpowers being used to break things in the background, but it's not until about 9 minutes in that we see any kind of conflict between students. This show clearly takes inspiration from the classic book Lord of the Flies, with children struggling to determine rules and leadership and escalating bit by bit toward dictatorial tendencies. There's a really interesting dynamic between kids who have powers and those who don't. The dialogue in the show is also really engaging. The runner-up here is Spirit Chronicles. It's unique in that the modern setting at the start is clearly much more than just a transition into the other world. There's a lot of attention given to the main character's childhood friend, who will clearly have some significance later on. In addition, having a character with 2 completely different sets of memories is rather unique. I'd also like to mention the Villainess show and the Drugstore show quickly. The first episode of the Villainess show is a recap and festival, but if the second season is anything like the first, I'm going to really enjoy seeing how Katarina turns various situations around. And the Drugstore show actually doesn't show the protagonist being isekai'd in the first episode, which lets us jump right into the world. The second category I want to talk about is action. Only a few of the isekai this season look like they'll have any substantial action, which is unusual. So far, I think the best one is Spirit Chronicles. It has a short but really well choreographed fight in the first episode, and the show clearly isn't afraid to show some brutal sequences. It seems like it will take its action very seriously. The runner-up for action is Tsukimichi. While the plot might not be the greatest because it makes the protagonist overly strong from the start, in the first episode we get to see some bombastic fights both with physical abilities and magic. Sonny Boy is also worth mentioning here because it seems like there may be some action sequences, but the first episode doesn't have much. Next, let's talk about visuals. This is another category that Sonny Boy wins easily, though of course this comes down to more personal preference. The thing I like most about Sonny Boy is that it looks very unique compared to all the other shows. It's made by Madhouse, which is known for anime like Death Note, One Punch Man Season 1, Hunter x Hunter, Hellsing Ultimate, and No Game No Life. Sonny Boy has a retro look to it, as if it were made in the 90s. It also does a lot of neat things with perspective, and when the superpowers come into play, all kinds of mind-bending things happen on the screen. The world is as unfamiliar to us as the viewers as it is to the students within it. The runner-up for visuals is My Next Life as a Villainess. I think the character designs are so vibrant, and the watercolor-like backgrounds that appear throughout really stand out. The animation staff at Silverlink are also very good at giving Katarina all kinds of crazy facial expressions that make her character so fun to watch. I think Spirit Chronicles is a show to watch out for visually too, based on the fluidity of its animation so far. The next category is comedy. Many of the isekai this season are comedic, but I think My Next Life as a Villainess will take the crown. The first episode is already very funny. Even though it's relatively uneventful because it's getting viewers reacquainted with the world, there are plenty of amusing interactions as Katarina's many suitors fight for her attention and try to stop others from getting it. There are also some great misunderstandings where Katarina thinks some of the characters are into each other when really they're after her. The comedy runner-up so far is Make You Black Company. It has a pretty funny premise in that a guy wants to avoid hard work at all costs, so he begins to resort to more and more underhanded tactics. At the same time, it's also amusing to see him reap the consequences when he gets too cocky and messes up. I will say that a lot of the jokes in the beginning of the episode didn't land, but by the end it was pretty decent. Honorable mention here goes to the Drugstore Isekai. It's more of a slice of life than a comedy, but there have been some pretty funny moments so far, like the protagonist making a potion to fix a yandere girlfriend that just ends up being tea to calm her down. Tsukimichi is also a comedy anime, but honestly I didn't think the jokes were very good. It's mostly focused on stuff like the main character being pervy. The final category I want to talk about is voice acting and sound. My top pick here is How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. The show has some impressive sound design during the summoning process that makes it feel very grand, and it has a distinctness to its voice acting where characters are really emphatic, making each person's voice very unique and sometimes almost comical. It also has some very well-known actors. Kazuya Soma is played by Yusuke Kobayashi, known for playing roles like Senku, Subaru, and Arthur Boyle. The Princess of the Kingdom is played by Inori Minase, known for roles like Rem, Hestia, and Itsuki Nakano. My runner-up for sound is My Next Life as a Villainess. The music in the first episode is a really amazing upbeat orchestral mix. It also has a stacked voice cast, including Inori Minase, Yoshitsugu Matsuoka, Maya Uchida, and Saori Hayami. So, now that the categories are out of the way, which summer 2021 isekai will be the overall best of the season? My prediction is Sonny Boy. Between the concept, the skillful writing and build-up, and the extremely unique visuals, I think it's the show to look out for this season. It's also the most removed from a traditional isekai show so far, which I like. In second place is My Next Life as a Villainess All Routes Lead to Doom X. This show fills the comedy and slice of life niches very well, and if it's as good as the first season, it should end up being one of my favorite summer 2021 shows. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for weekly content. I'm Matrix from Matrix AM, Anime, and more, and I hope you have a great day.